Hello and welcome to tonight's webinar. I'm Dr. David Ajibade. I'm the founder and director of the Brain and Body Foundation. You are welcome. So we're going to be talking about the aging brain. What happens as your brain ages? And when I'm talking about aging, I'm not talking about 90s and when you turn 100. I'm talking about really from late 30s on to 40s on to 50. Excuse me. What just happened there? Okay. Late 30s to 40s to 50s, because quite frankly, we reach the peak. We reach the optimum health, really, when it comes to the brain and body around the late 20s, early 30s. And then things kind of plateau for a while. And then when you get to be 40, early 40s, things begin to dip and decline. And so it's important that we are aware of these changes that are happening to our brain and body, especially our brain. I don't know if this has happened to you, but I know when I started my late 30s and early 40s, I started realizing that I was struggling to remember things. It wasn't that I wouldn't remember, but I could actually feel, I was conscious of the struggle to remember things that would come really a lot easier in the past. I mean, things I'll just remember things just like that. And then now it was like, I'm actually seeing myself or feeling myself thinking and trying to remember. There's actually some effort in remembering. And so I was like, yeah, things are changing. Things are changing really. And a lot of people, these changes happen to them and they just don't do anything about it. They just feel like that's just life. That's just who I am. That's how everybody feels it. We're just going to have to deal with it as we go along. But I'm here to tell you that that is simply not true. There's a lot that can be done to improve not just your memory, but your thinking processes so that you don't have that decline that happens with most people. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so if you're just joining us, please be sure to let us know where you're logging in from, what your name is, of course, and where you're logging in from. And then we shall get into it. Thank you. Great conversation. LinkedIn user. What is your name? LinkedIn user. Can you tell me what your name is, please? LinkedIn user. I would hate to refer to you as a LinkedIn user. Anyway, so yes, we are going to be talking about what to do. But first of all, we're going to be talking about what happens as you grow older. Yeah, thank you, Facebook user. LinkedIn user says Richmond, Virginia. But what's your name, though? Let's know what your name is, Mr. or Mrs. LinkedIn user. And Facebook user too, let's know who you are as well. So again, we're talking about changes that happen to your brain as you grow older and how that can result in memory loss and dementia. Now, obviously, just having memory loss does not mean you have dementia. In fact, dementia does not mean memory loss. People think that way. In fact, there are many dementia patients who don't really have memory loss that you can point to. They may have other things like mood problems, ability to think, ability to comprehend, ability to recognize faces. That's not the same thing as memory loss. So memory loss, the bottom line here is that memory loss does not equal dementia. Dementia could include other things like mood changes, like I've said, even balance problems. It's a syndrome, and there are about 2 or 3 things that point to it. Memory loss may not be in amongst those 2 or 3 things. It usually is, but not all the time. So I guess a few more people are coming in, and we'll just give you a few more minutes. We'll just give it a few more, I don't know, minutes, seconds, I don't know. So what happens to your brain? What happens to your brain as you age? One of the top things, and this is particularly pertinent to African Americans, is that the blood flow, the circulatory system in the brain as we age, we found this out, is worse among Blacks, and it happens to everybody as we age, but it's worse among Blacks. And I can tell you, I have a few ideas as to why that is so. But the health of the vasculature, the vascular system, the arteries and veins in the brain, there tends to be more inflammation as you grow older. Everybody, whites, blacks, brown, whatever. As you grow older, the vessels become narrower and they become more inflamed. What does that mean? It means that the brain cells, excuse me, are not getting enough oxygen and enough nutrients as we go along. And so over time, remember, oxygen nutrients are vital to the brain. Now, the brain will manage whatever you give the brain, it will manage, but it gets to a certain point when it's going to say enough. Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. And brain cells tend to die a lot easier when there's starvation, when there's not enough glucose and nutrients and oxygen, like I've said. So that's one of the things that we see. But also, just the diseased blood vessels can also cause damage and spread of inflammation to the brain. So that's one of the things. The other thing is the hormones. We talked about this in the past. The most important hormone for the brain, or the brain's most important hormone, is estrogen. That's quote unquote the woman's hormone, but men need it as well to protect their brains. And we know that with menopause, that's part of aging, right? With menopause, estrogen levels begin to plummet. So does progesterone levels, and of course, testosterone levels. So all three, plus the thyroid hormone levels, begin to go low. The lower, once your brain isn't getting the support of these key hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and thyroid hormones, once it's not getting that support, your brain is not going to be as healthy as it should be. It's not going to be as functioning. It's not going to be as sharp as it should be. So it needs the support of those hormones. We know that those things begin to drop with age. Another thing that happens is that the brain is not able to use or respond to nutrients like before. A good example is vitamin D. As we grow older, we are not, first of all, we're not making enough vitamin D in our bodies, but also it seems that the cells, the neurons, and cells of the body in general are simply not making enough. They're not responding to these key hormones, these key nutrients, including zinc, including magnesium, and a few other things. So it's not responding like it should. Now, I don't want to depress you. The only reason why I'm saying all these things is that we now know that there are things that you can do. So to compensate for or to mitigate against this decline. So I'm mentioning these, but I'm going to turn around and give you the solutions to this. So don't hang up, don't log out yet. Yeah, there's still a lot we're going to share with you. Okay. All right. So other things too, digestion. So obviously nutrients. We talked about nutrients and hormones. The way the nutrients get into our bodies and into our brains, obviously, is through eating a healthy diet, eating a well-balanced diet, right? That has fiber as well as good fats, as well as vegetables. So you need the full range of these nutrients to help, and different things work in different ways in the brain. If we're not following a good diet that's providing these nutrients in ample amounts to the brain, your brain is simply not going to function like it should. So if we were in our 20s, our teens and our 20s, and we're always taking soda pops and hot pockets and McDonald's and all the other fast foods, our brains were more efficient at extracting the nutrients that we needed from that quote unquote junk food and using it for the brain. But as we grow older, that efficiency begins to wane. And so we're not able to digest, extract, and get rid of the bad stuff, to get rid of all the toxins and the chemicals and the preservatives. Our bodies could neutralize those things and get rid of them. Our bodies still can do all those things, but simply not as effectively as before. So toxins tend to accumulate in the body, and the nutrients that we're supposed to be getting from our food, we don't get it. So it calls for deliberate, conscious, deliberate action and proactive action when it comes to ensuring that your brain is being provided with the nutrients and the chemicals that it needs to function. Again, this is all about just letting you know what is happening as we grow older, and therefore things that we need to now be more proactive about. We just can't take things for granted like we used to when we were in our teens and our early 20s, because the body is just not working like it was before. And what I've seen is really mostly is the athletes and those who are into competitive sports or I don't know, competitive, whatever, that seem to take this to heart and seem to be doing this on a regular basis past their 30s and 40s. But for most of us who have jobs and we're just going to work, we're trying to raise a family, we're trying to keep a family, put food on the table, and so on and so forth. We tend to let all these things slip and just focus on survival. And I'm here to say, no, we cannot just let these things slip. We've got to apportion some of our time and energy and our effort towards deliberately ensuring that our brains have what they need to keep on functioning like they should. Because I promise you, if you leave these things for granted, if you just say, well, I'll be fine, it's going to come up and catch up with you. And we know that is the accumulation of this damage and, shall we say, disrepair and just negligence. Let's just call it what it is. And negligence over the years that eventually, in many cases, result in things like memory loss and dementia. But there's something you can do. It doesn't matter whether you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. There's something you can do right now to begin to optimize and improve your brain function. So please pay attention. If there's one thing you want to take away from this thing, make sure you take it away and make sure you act upon it. All right. There's something called insulin resistance. You've probably heard about it before. It's not just about sugar. Over time, let's just say what insulin is for. Insulin is a hormone that helps the cells of the body take in glucose and metabolize and use glucose. So insulin is like the key that opens the door for glucose to enter into the cells. If insulin is not there, it will not open the door, and therefore glucose will not enter the cells. So the glucose remains in the bloodstream, and it begins to build and rise higher and higher in the bloodstream, and the cells are starved of the energy they need. So it's a double whammy. There's high levels of glucose in the bloodstream, which is dangerous to the brain and the body, but there's also low levels of glucose in the cells. So in other words, it's like you're starving in the midst of plenty. It's like the person who is dying of thirst in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean because he can't drink the water, obviously, from the Atlantic Ocean. So he's dying, even though there's water all around him. Same thing, brain cells and body cells are dying, even though there's glucose all around them, because insulin is not there to open the door. So that's the problem. And that tends to happen as we grow older. We tend to have high levels of insulin, but low and high levels of glucose, but not enough glucose in our cells. Now that happens across the board. It's worse in things like memory loss and dementia. So what we have to do is to find out ways to improve our body's ability, our cells' ability to respond to that key so that glucose can enter the cells and leave the bloodstream. We don't want high levels of glucose in the bloodstream. It's a killer. All right, so what can we do? First things first, you need to be active throughout your life. You can't say when you turn 60, I'm retired, so I can just sit on my couch and watch TV. I've put in my time, I'm good. I don't have to work anymore. I can get somebody else to do everything I need to do. I mean, that happens a lot in my country, Nigeria, because labor is cheap. You can always find a kid who can do everything, who will do everything for you at next to nothing. Over in the US, it's a little bit more expensive to do these things, but still people tend to be lazy. So I would say one of the best things you can do for yourself is that if you have finished a meal, don't just plunk down in front of the TV and start watching your favorite TV shows. You want to take that food and walk around a little bit so the blood sugar, so your cells can take in, your muscles can take in blood sugar and get it out of the blood system. That's one. Number two is that you want to take vitamin D. I always talk about vitamin D, and people say just take a balanced diet. Well, you can't get enough vitamin D from a balanced diet, and there are some other nutrients too that you just can't get from a balanced diet either. Potassium, for instance, is one thing you can't get from a balanced diet, because unless you take a lot of vegetables. And we Black people are especially deficient in potassium. And funnily enough, we don't take as much vegetables especially raw vegetables, as other races do. And I could be wrong, but that's just my observation. So that it calls for taking in extra help by taking in the right kind of nutrients. But that's another story for another time. Another thing I want to be stress a lot is sugar. We Black people simply don't respond and tolerate and handle sugar as well as other races do. In other words, sugar tends to build up in our blood more quickly than white people do. And then the whole irony of it all is that, or the paradox, is that we tend to be the race that likes sugar the most. We love sugar. We take in sugar in our sodas, our juices, our I don't know, yeah, all kinds of stuff. We take fries, and so on and so forth. So our bodies don't handle sugar as well. So yeah, like I said, when you were younger, you could handle sugar better. Now that you're getting older, one of the things you want to reduce. If you can't stop at all, you want to start reducing your carbs, especially the starchy carbs. And that includes the grains, the bread, the breads, the pastas. I think pasta's bread, the rice, and all the other things that you know. I mean, we pretty much know a lot about this. We know that the starchy foods tend to raise blood sugar, potatoes as well. So and then of course the sugar, pure sugar itself, it raises blood sugar. So you want to start bringing those. You want to start, I would say, start cutting them in half. You will be surprised how well you will do. I mean, if you cut your rice in half, or your servings, your normal servings of pasta, cutting in half, you'll be surprised how well you do. And then if you can replace that with proteins and healthy fats, sugar substitute, no, this is not okay. Please, someone's asking if a sugar substitute is okay. Most of these, from my experience, the sugar substitutes are simply more dangerous than sugar itself, especially the ones that contain aspartame. So no, that's the answer to that. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. I got to tell you the truth. So you want to reduce starches. You want to increase your good fats. You want to stop seed oils, canola oil, sunflower oil, all those so-called healthy vegetable oils. We now know they're not good enough for you. You want to go with the healthier oils like avocado oil, olive oil, and a few others. It should be good to also reduce your fried foods a lot. Turn more to cooked foods than oily foods, cooked foods than fried foods, please. So move around, exercise more, reduce your sugar intake, increase your vitamin D. And here's the big one. Now that the sun is coming out, now that we've successfully navigated winter, now that we're in spring, I would say get out in the sun. We need more. We Blacks have to spend 6 to 10 times the amount of time that a white person, especially a pale white person, has to spend in the sun to get enough vitamin D. And if you listen to our other talks, you know that vitamin D is absolutely crucial for the brain. And we can only make vitamin. There are two ways we can get vitamin D. We make it through exposure to the sun, our skin's direct exposure to the sun, or we take it through supplements. If you are not in the sun regularly on a daily basis, you are not making enough vitamin D. It doesn't matter how hot it is outside or how bright it is outside. If you just go out for a few minutes to get into your car or get into a bus and you're fully covered, you are not going to. Well, if you have burns, if you're a kind of person that easily gets sunburns, then you're probably not going to spend enough time in the sun to make vitamin D. Therefore, you absolutely need to take a supplement. So again, there are only two ways your brain will get vitamin D. Either you make it or you get it as a supplement. Forget about food. If you're not in the sun regularly, then I guarantee you, especially if you're over 40, if you're overweight, if you're dark, females even have it worse. So if you're dark, you're overweight, you're over 40, if you're dealing with diabetes or you have another chronic disease, I mean, these things just layer on top of each other and they make you more prone to having make you more prone to having vitamin D deficiency. So the smartest thing you can do is to check your vitamin D levels, and if they are low, and I pretty much guarantee they will be low if you haven't had a lecture like this before, you're pretty much I'm pretty sure it's going to be low. So you want to start to rectify that by taking vitamin D. Alrighty, so those are 3 things. Most importantly, move more, especially after your meals. Take vitamin D, reduce your intake of sugary stuff. Very, very important. What's the difference between vitamin D and vitamin D3? Vitamin D is like an umbrella term for a lot of different vitamin Ds. So there's vitamin D2 and then there's vitamin D3. I understand there's vitamin D1. I don't know much about it, but D2 and D3. D3 is the more bioavailable, is the healthier form of vitamin D. That's the one you should get. Luckily, it's the cheaper form. You can get it over the counter. So I would strongly suggest to get that. It's super. You can get like 6 months supply for less than $10. Super cheap. Okay. So thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, you can always DM me or type it in the comment section. Sometimes I come back and visit this in LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn, and then you can check and help you answer your questions. Again, this is Dr. David. God bless you. Take care. See you next week. Bye.